The late afternoon sun spilled through the dusty windows of the small-town grocery store, casting golden streaks on the scuffed linoleum floor. Daniel shifted uneasily in line, his army duffel bag slung over one shoulder and his uniform still pressed from that morning's duty. He looked like the picture of strength, broad-shouldered, clean-cut, with boots polished to perfection. But beneath the disciplined exterior was a young man battling a weight heavier than his rucksack. He hadn't eaten a proper meal in days. His paycheck had been delayed, his rent was already late, and the little cash in his wallet was all he had to make it through the week. He clutched a basket with the bare essentials: a loaf of bread, a carton of eggs, a jar of peanut butter. Nothing extravagant, nothing unnecessary. Still, as he stood behind a few customers, his heart pounded with an embarrassing realization: he might not have enough to cover even these basics. The hum of chatter surrounded him, mothers comparing prices, children begging for candy bars, the sound of the cashier's scanner beeping rhythmically. Daniel tried to steady his breathing, rehearsing in his mind what he might say if his money came up short. The thought of having to put something back, to show his lack in front of strangers, sent a sting of shame through him. Soldiers weren't supposed to struggle. They were supposed to be strong, dependable, unshaken. In front of him stood a frail woman with silver hair pinned neatly at the back of her head. She wore a faded cardigan that had clearly been mended many times and pushed a cart with a handful of modest items: canned soup, tea bags, and a bouquet of daisies that looked like they had been chosen with care rather than convenience. Daniel caught a glimpse of her gentle smile as she greeted the cashier, her voice soft but steady. She seemed the type who carried warmth with her, the kind of warmth Daniel hadn't felt in a long while. As her items were scanned, Daniel lowered his gaze and began fishing coins and crumpled bills from his pocket. He counted once, then again, his palms sweating as he realized he was short. He cursed under his breath, willing himself to stay calm, but his hands trembled as he lined up the money on the counter, trying to stretch every cent. The woman glanced back at him. Her eyes, though clouded by age, carried an unmistakable clarity of understanding. She saw his uniform, the duffel bag, the worn-out look in his eyes. She noticed the way he hesitated over the bills. Without a word, she turned slightly, as though adjusting her purse, and slid a folded $20 bill onto the counter with her groceries. The cashier, a young teenager barely old enough to understand the quiet desperation before him, looked confused. The woman simply nodded toward Daniel. "Add his to mine," she said gently, her voice carrying no hesitation, no drama, just simple kindness. Daniel's head snapped up, his face flushing with surprise. "Ma'am, no, you don't have to," his voice cracked, betraying the vulnerability he tried so hard to mask. She met his protest with a smile so disarming it silenced him. "It's already done," she replied. "One day, when you can, pass it on." Her words landed in Daniel's chest with a weight far greater than the money she had given. It wasn't just the groceries, it was the acknowledgement, the recognition that someone saw him, cared for him, and believed he was worth helping. He felt his throat tighten, his vision blur for a moment. Soldiers weren't supposed to cry in grocery stores, but Daniel couldn't stop the tear that slipped down his cheek. The cashier bagged both their items together, sliding Daniel's modest purchase toward him. He picked up the bag with trembling hands, still struggling to find the right words. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice low but filled with a sincerity that came from the very core of him. I won't forget this." The woman patted his arm softly, her touch gentle yet firm. "Just promise me you'll do the same for someone else when the time comes." "That's all I ask." Daniel nodded, unable to trust his voice any longer. He watched her gather her daisies and groceries, walking slowly but with dignity toward the door. For a fleeting second, she turned back and offered him another smile, the kind of smile that reminded him of home, of simpler days, of the goodness that still existed in the world. Then she was gone, disappearing into the evening light as if she had been an angel passing through. Daniel stood frozen in place, the bag of groceries clutched tightly against his chest. Around him, the store carried on as if nothing had happened. The beeping of the scanner continued, people chatted casually, children laughed in the candy aisle. Yet for Daniel, the world had shifted. That one act of generosity had pierced through his loneliness, his exhaustion, his quiet despair. It wasn't just about filling his stomach, it was about filling the hollow space in his heart with hope. As he stepped out of the store and into the cool autumn air, he looked down at the bag in his hand. Bread, eggs, peanut butter. Simple things, yet now they carried the weight of something far greater. They carried the memory of a woman's kindness, the reminder that even when life felt impossible, humanity had a way of showing up in the most unexpected places. Daniel tucked the folded receipt into his wallet, right next to the faded $20 bill she had slipped onto the counter. He told himself he would keep it as a reminder, a symbol of the day he learned that strength wasn't just about standing tall in uniform, it was also about allowing yourself to receive kindness and vowing to give it back when the chance came. And though he walked back to his small apartment with nothing more than groceries in hand, he carried something far more nourishing in his heart. The seed of a promise, planted by a stranger's hand, that would one day grow into something life-changing. The years rolled by, and Daniel's once strong frame bore the marks of battles both seen and unseen. His uniform had been neatly folded away in the back of a closet, replaced by worn jeans and shirts that carried the smell of labor and long nights. The proud sparkle in his eyes had dulled, hidden beneath layers of struggle. He had tried to build a life after the army, odd jobs here and there, part-time shifts that never seemed to add up, and a constant battle with the pain in his knee that never fully healed from deployment. Bills piled on the small wooden table in his one-bedroom apartment. Rent notices, medical expenses, utilities, each one stamped with red ink that made his chest tighten. Daniel sat hunched over the stack, head in his hands, the silence of the apartment pressing down like a weight. The eviction notice lay on top, its words stark and merciless, vacate within 14 days. He had fought in war zones, faced enemies with weapons in hand, but this felt like a battle he could not win. He had no one to call, no family nearby, no steady paycheck to fall back on. The loneliness pressed against his ribs until it was hard to breathe. He pulled open the top drawer of an old desk, searching for something. A scrap of hope, maybe. His fingers brushed against a folded piece of paper, worn soft from years of being tucked away. It was the receipt from that day at the grocery store. Next to it, scribbled in faded ink, was a phone number. Margaret's number, the elderly woman who had once saved him with nothing more than a smile, a few dollars, and a reminder to pass it on. Daniel stared at it, his chest tightening. She had probably forgotten him by now. Maybe she had moved, or maybe she was gone. He hesitated, phone in hand, his thumb hovering over the numbers. But desperation whispered louder than doubt. He dialed. The line clicked after a few rings. A soft female voice answered. Hello. Daniel swallowed hard. Hi, I don't know if this is the right number. I was trying to reach Margaret. She once helped me years ago. His voice cracked as he spoke, his nerves fraying with every word. There was a pause on the other end, a silence that seemed to stretch into forever. Finally, the voice replied, gentle yet heavy with emotion. You must be Daniel. His heart stuttered. Yes. How do you know my name? I'm her daughter, the woman said softly. My mother told me about you. She never forgot. She said there was a young soldier she helped once, and she always hoped you'd call someday. But, I'm sorry, my mother passed away last year. The words hit Daniel like a blow. His chest tightened, and for a moment he couldn't breathe. The hope that had carried him through dialing the number flickered, but before despair could settle in, the daughter continued. She left behind something, the woman said, her voice steady now. After she passed, we started a small foundation in her name. It's dedicated to helping veterans, men and women like you. She always said kindness should ripple forward. If you're struggling, Daniel, maybe we can help. Daniel pressed his hand to his face, the tears he had been holding back finally breaking free. He had expected nothing, maybe just a moment of comfort from hearing her voice again, even if she didn't remember him. But this was beyond anything he could have imagined. Are you sure? He whispered. I don't want to take from others. There must be so many who need it more. The woman's voice grew warm, carrying the same tone her mother had once spoken with. My mother helped you because she believed in you. And she believed that when people are given help, they can rise again and one day help someone else. This is her way of making sure her promise continues. Let us be here for you. The following week, Daniel received a letter in the mail. Inside was not only financial assistance to cover his overdue rent and bills but also a handwritten note from Margaret's daughter. "My mother always said kindness finds its way back, Daniel. She believed in you then, and we believe in you now. Use this chance. Heal, rebuild, and when the time comes, pass it on." Daniel sat on the edge of his bed, the letter trembling in his hands, tears streaming freely down his face. The weight that had threatened to crush him for so long lifted, replaced by something he hadn't felt in years, hope. That night, he taped the letter and the old grocery receipt side by side on the wall above his desk. They weren't just pieces of paper. They were reminders that no act of kindness is ever wasted, that the smallest gesture can ripple across time and save a life when it's needed most. As he lay down to sleep, Daniel whispered into the quiet room, "Thank you, Margaret." He knew he would carry her legacy forward. One day, when someone else stood where he had stood, lost and afraid, he would be ready. He would remember the groceries, the smile, the $20 bill, the promise. And he would pass it on. For the first time in a long time, Daniel drifted into sleep not with worry, but with the warmth of knowing that kindness had found its way back to him, exactly when he needed it most.